You've seen the communique. You've been in some of these meetings. What's your reaction? What did you think about the communique?
They managed to get more than I expected. They really pulled a few rabbits out of the hat, and I think it was a very impressive communique. And I think Gordon Brown, it's really probably his finest hour.
Why?
Because he really did see the need for addressing this global problem, because you have the less developed world facing a potential collapse as the banks don't roll over their loans. So something had to be done, and he did manage to bring it together. And I would say that this is probably the first time that the authorities are actually ahead of the curve.
Let's talk about the money for the IMF. Could rise to $750 billion. Is that enough? And more importantly, who should get the money?
Well, they really managed to put together a bigger package than anybody expected. And very important is the issue of special drawing rights. It's $250 billion. That is effectively internationally creating new money. And that will help to allow the countries that are not able to print their own money the way we can, actually to stimulate their economies. And I think the way for the rich countries to transfer their allocations to the most needy countries can be worked out.
So are you saying that the efforts as far as the IMF and the communique overall have completely changed your mind? I mean, a week and a half ago, you were out very vocal saying, look, the IMF is going to have to basically bail out the UK. Here we are sitting in one of the greatest cities in the world.
No, that was a misleading headline given to an interview where I said it's most unlikely that Britain would need to go to the IMF. However, the fact that it created such an outcry shows what a stigma there is attached to having to go to the IMF.
A lot of people, when you were talking about the UK and the need for help and really a bailout, people were saying, well, wait a second, you know, George Soros years ago shorted the pound and made money on this, and maybe he's, you know, playing his book. In fact, Lord Mandelson said that. He basically said that in so many words to me earlier in the week. Are you shorting the pound right now?
No, I'm not. First of all, I've withdrawn now from actual running the fund. I did it last year. We came through it. Now I've handed it back to the people who can do it. So I'm out of the markets as I was before I came out of retirement. So I'm back in retirement.
Until you feel it. I don't know if you're going to be able to stay in retirement very long, frankly. But let me ask you about the operations in terms of hedge funds oversight, because this is another thing. The group said that they want more regulation on hedge funds. Did you agree with what they said and where they're going in terms of more oversight?
Well, I think you absolutely will need more regulation, but you really need to have better regulation. Yes, we have allowed the markets free hand, and of course that was very unsound. But we don't want to go overboard now with regulations, because the fact that markets are imperfect, that they don't anticipate the future correctly. Regulators are just as imperfect.
Can you characterize the situation for us in Eastern Europe right now?
What happened when the Western Europe and America guaranteed the banking system, the other countries in Eastern Europe couldn't provide similarly convincing guarantees. And the banks in the West started pulling their capital out of there and pulling them back. And the national regulators also wanted the banks to lend at home and not abroad. And so that created a crisis for Eastern Europe.
What are your thoughts on the developments surrounding mark-to-market? FASB coming out and saying that they do want to make it easier, a little more lax in terms of the regulation for mark-to-market. Is this going to help? What are your thoughts on that?
There I remain really critical, because I think the much more effective would have been to recapitalize the banks. And because of the history of the way the top money was spent, it was really very messy and very badly done. And because of that, there's increasing reluctance by Congress to make new money available. And yet, it would be much, much better to create clean banks, banks that are able to lend. And I think we missed the boat on that. And that means that we will be spending a long time allowing the banks to dig themselves out of a hole. And while they're doing that, they will not be really providing sufficient credit to carry on business. They'll be charging a lot, and generally it's going to weigh on our economy for a period of time.
I know you saw the story about some hedge funds saying, look, we're going to leave London. The tax situation is not favorable. We don't like the business conditions here. What do you think about that?
Where are they going to go? Another planet? I mean, you know, there is no alternative, because now with the tax havens being brought under control, I think hedge funds will have to get used to being regulated.
George, is there anywhere in the world doing well right now? I mean, anywhere that, you know, you would say, look, this is safety, this is where I want to be?
I think that actually China stands to emerge faster and better than most other countries. I think actually Brazil, that has been hurt by this financial crisis after Lehman, is also basically quite well situated. So I think India, because it is less tied in with the rest of the world. So I think that the global economy will probably start growing next year.
George, the Chinese said that there should be another option away from the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. Do you agree with that?
In the long run, that may be appropriate. It's not in the cards now. The special drawing rights that are now being issued, these are not currency. They are a bookkeeping entry at the IMF. You have to convert them into a convertible currency before you can use them. I think probably the Chinese yuan will also be made one of the currencies into which you can convert it, which is appropriate because China is now a very important country. But we are nowhere near the SDRs becoming an international currency. Long
term, what would the currency be? Would it be the Chinese yuan?
No, I think the dollar is the dominant currency for a while to come. But in the long run, I think it would be important that the U.S. should be subject to the same discipline as the rest of the world.